Good morning, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. This is Rich again, back for your morning blog on July 16, 2014. It's a Wednesday. It's around 7:15 in Billerica, Massachusetts. It's going to be a damp and dreary day again with thunder showers, which could be localized heavy rain, downpours, and winds and lightning. Be careful out there today. It's going to be the last day of this, and then summertime weather returns with sunshine and lower humidity for a few days. Some sports news to report. The American League beat the National League in the All-Star game by a score of 5-3 to get home field advantage at the World Series. Mike Trout of the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim won the MVP for the All-Star game, and it was also New York Yankees shortstop Derek Jeter's last All-Star game appearance, and he got a standing ovation when he got taken out of the game, and it was amazing that Jeter went out of the All-Star game in style, and he's a class act. And also, the ESPY Awards are on tonight at 8 p.m. on ESPN. The ESPYs honors the top sports players and plays of the year, and it's going to be real good. And on to my first subject of the day. It's about a program that's a television institution in Canada. It's Hockey Night in Canada. Hockey Night in Canada has been on the air for 62 years, and it's still going strong to this date. Actually, Hockey Night in Canada started on the radio back in 1931, and the primary play-by-play announcer was Foster Hewitt. And Hockey Night in Canada broadcast games throughout Canada on the radio, carrying the Canadian-based NHL teams, the Montreal Canadiens, the Toronto Maple Leafs, the late great Montreal Maroons, and the late great Ottawa Senators, the first version of the Ottawa Senators. And it was real popular. The sponsor of Hockey Night in Canada and the radio was the Canadian gas company Esso, and it was so popular. When Canada got television in September of 1952, it was only natural that Hockey Night in Canada would wear a television version, and a few weeks later, when Canada got television coast to coast throughout the country, Hockey Night in Canada made its television debut in October of 1952, and it broadcast the games of the Maple Leafs and the Canadians, but they joined the game in progress at 9 p.m., usually for the start of the second period in the 1950s. When it was into the early 60s, through 1968, they would start it at 8:30. They'll join the game in the first period. They did this probably so the fans could join the progress of the games, and also maybe to protect the attendance and stuff. In 1966, all Hockey Night in Canada games were broadcast in color for the first time. And in 1968, all of the Hockey Night in Canada games were broadcast in its entirety at 8 p.m. And in 1970, the Vancouver Canucks joined the National Hockey League, so they participated in Hockey Night in Canada, but it got the Canadians and the Maple Leafs mad because they had to share the television money with the Canucks, and the Canadians and Maple Leafs got 50-50 of the contract before that, but now they had to split it 3 ways, which they got them very mad. And when the NHL added more Canadian teams like the Flames, the Oilers, the Winnipeg Jets, and Nordiques, they had to split the contract 7 ways, and it was very difficult for that because they lost a significant amount of money. And some of the play-by-play announcers who've called Hockey Night in Canada game throughout the years were Danny Gavin, Dan Kelly, Dick Irvin Jr., Jim Robson, Bob Cole, Bill Hewitt, Jim Hintz, Uson, Dean Brown, Mark Lee, Chris Cuthbert, and a whole host of others. And also, like, Hockey Night in Canada studio host for many years was Ron MacLean, and he was joined in the first period of usually the hockey games with Coach's Corner with Don Cherry, And also, the second period, they had the hot stove, which they talked about NHL topics of the day. Yeah, by the mid-1990s, Hockey Night in Canada grew so much that they had double headers on Saturday nights. The first doubleheader was at 7 p.m. from an Eastern Canadian NHL city like Montreal, Toronto, or Ottawa. And then at 10 p.m., the second Hockey Night in Canada doubleheader was from Calgary, Edmonton, Vancouver, or Winnipeg. Once in a while, they might show a game from a U.S. city like Los Angeles or Anaheim. They showed more like Los Angeles game, like Kings games from the late 80s through the mid-90s because Wayne Gretzky played for the Kings. And also, Hockey Night in Canada became more and more popular, and in 2000 they had a Hockey Day in Canada, which all 6 NHL Canadian-based teams played in a triple header, and they would go to every day a southern Canadian city, which was a small Canadian city town, would host Hockey Day in Canada, and it was real popular. And Hockey Night in Canada continues to grow and grow. They have the CBC, who ran it since 1952, also owns the rights to the Winter Classic, the NHL All-Star Game, and NHL playoffs, and they would get to pick and choose if it was a Canadian team in the playoff. They would carry that Canadian team playoff series. And by the end of the 2013-2014 season, the CBC lost exclusive rights to Hockey Night in Canada. They're still going to carry Hockey Night in Canada, but it's going to be leased to them by Rogers Sportsnet, and it's a 12-year contract that Rogers Sportsnet has with the NHL for the Canadian deal, and it's going to sublease games to Hockey Night in Canada, but they're only required to broadcast 4 years of Hockey Night in Canada on the CBC, including the All-Star Game and the playoffs. And at the end of the 2017-2018 season, the Rogers Sportsnet has the option of terminating the contract of the subleasing of the games to the CBC, which they're going to do it, and it will be shameful because Hockey Night in Canada there's been a tradition on CBC since 1952, and it's going to be a real shame to see Hockey Night in Canada gone from CBC, but it's a business decision, and I think they're doing this to promote Rogers Sportsnet in 2000 when it goes to 2018 and stuff like that. I think Hockey Night in Canada is the equivalent of the Canadian version of the Saturday baseball game of the week for Major League Baseball and stuff like that. It's an institution, and it had one of the most familiar theme songs back in the 1970s and 1980s, 1990s. Do 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 do. That's the theme song that was popular for years on Hockey Night in Canada. You could get to see Hockey Night in Canada in the United States on the NHL Network now. Before, they used to be part of NHL Center Night's Hockey Ice package if you out-of-market games, but the demands for the NHL Network, they were getting so many demands to have the Hockey Night in games in Canada on the NHL Network, so they obliged to it. I wonder if they're going to continue to do the NHL Hockey Night in Canada games on the NHL Network this year. I wonder, probably will happen, but you never know about that. So that's about it for Hockey Night in Canada. It's only about maybe 2.5 months away from NHL season, and I just can't wait for the NHL season to start, especially in Boston, because the Red Sox are having a poor season, and it's a month away before the Patriots. Celtics are going to have another bad season, so hoping that the Bruins have a good season this year, but they won't be the sexy pick for the Cup because they lost a few good players. Well, I'll be back later on with more video blogs today. Have a good day, Facebook friends and YouTube followers. Bye now.